Hello and welcome to Forever Sports for another player interview. And I am joined by Springbok flyhalf as well as Sevens player Libbie Janse Van Rensburg, who is currently coming back from injury and so has a bit of time to chat to us about her career. First of all, Libbie, how are you? And thank you so much for giving us your time.
Hi, Steve. I'm doing very well, thank you. Not a problem at all. It's always an honor to be involved, you guys.
Cool. Right. So at the moment, we just saw the Sevens doing very well over the weekend, but without you at the moment. So before we sort of go through the career stuff like that, just give us a bit of an update, exactly what happened in Dubai and how's the return going from the injury?
So during the Dubai Sevens in December, I tore my groin. Had it operated in December, shortly after, about a week after the tournament, and I've been slowly going through the recovery process. Very exciting at the moment. I started running this week, so that is fantastic news, and we're sort of on the last stretch of my rehab, hoping to be back end of April if all goes well.
So you managed to choose one of the hottest weeks of the year to get back to running. And I think and in Pretoria it can't be much warmer than over here, so that can't be too much fun unless you're sticking to an aircon gym.
No, it is a struggle, but I mean, anyone who chooses to play sevens chooses to struggle.
This is true. Yeah, you made your choice a while ago. You know, you come to terms with the fact that you're never going to be enjoying life too much on the field. So I suppose you're used to it.
No, absolutely.
Right, so I want to take you back right to the start, because a lot of people, obviously, you become a bit of a household name in the last few years, but from my understanding, quite a late bloomer in the rugby world. So, but a lot of people also, I think, don't even understand how, sort of the women's career sort of starts and sort of where the avenues are and stuff like that. So, where did it all sort of start? Back in school, what sort of sports did you play? Where did you get exposed? How did you sort of end up from right at the beginning, sort of to playing professional rugby?
So when I was in school, I was pretty much an all-rounder with sports. I did swimming, I did athletics, I did hockey. But the one sport that definitely made the difference for me was touch rugby. So we had a teacher at the school who sort of introduced me to touch rugby, and that was my first introduction to an oval ball. At that time, I also didn't know that women's rugby was a thing. It was never, promoted as much as it is today. So that was the only sort of exposure that I had with a rugby ball, was with touch rugby. And then when I started studying at the University of Pretoria, was when I actually got exposed to sevens rugby, and the coach approached me and told me, listen, they're going to play in the Central Sevens in Paris if I want to go with for this experience. And of course, they called me hook, line and sinker just for the traveling to start off with. Yeah. So that was where I sort of got introduced to contact rugby for the first time. But with that said, I did play sevens for majority of my career leading up to now. It was only during sort of the end of my studies when I realized, okay, I'm going to have to become an adult, sort of. That horrible moment. Yeah, that horrible moment. I sort of thought, okay, it's time to, hang up the boots and stuff. And then COVID happened. And then during the COVID time was supposed to be the Women's 15s World Cup. And the Blue Bulls coach contacted me and told me, listen, I want to give the 15s a try. He thinks I'll have a good shot at making the World Cup squad, whatever. And I didn't really buy into it at first. I was never interested in playing 15s just because, I didn't actually know what the game was. I was just focused on sevens. Sevens was my only thing. But then after COVID, there wasn't any rugby happening, especially sevens. We couldn't tour, we couldn't travel, we couldn't play anywhere. So I thought, okay, well, locally, the only rugby that's happening is the interprovincial rugby, which was the 15s at the time. And I decided to give it a shot. And honestly, the rest is history. I mean, I played one season with the Bulls, got my call up to the Springboks, received my cap like a couple of months later. And honestly, my career's just skyrocketed from there. So it's been a really great journey. The sevens was good to me. And it's now again coming into the picture because I was so focused on the 15s for a long time. And then getting the call up back to the sevens, especially now leading up to the Olympics, is such an honor. And I mean, of course, what player wouldn't want to go to the Olympics?
Yeah. No, I think that's very interesting. The fact that I'm going to talk about it a bit later. I think that the whole sort of link between sevens and 15s, and we've seen in the male game, but a very different sort of way of doing things. And I think especially the fact at the moment, whilst we're still growing our resource, the fact that we sort of split the resource between 15 and sevens, I think is a very interesting move by SA Rugby. But let's go sort of, from touch rugby to contact rugby. Now, we all had that moment. We had our first sort of rugby match, and you're very excited. The first match goes well, then you start playing, and you start wondering that this actually hurts. this is actually quite different from sort of playing touch rugby and around at home and stuff. What was that like? Because most people would sort of go through playing contact rugby from quite a young age. Was it quite a shock to the system, or was it something that you actually ended up really enjoying quite early?
No, look, it was definitely a shock. So going into the sevens, I thought, okay, 7 minutes a half, oh, that's nothing. Touch, we play 20-minute halves, rolling subs. Like, I'm quite a fit person, always been quite fit, so 7 minutes is going to be a breeze. Little did I know how
famous
tough
last words
sevens actually is, and I didn't really prepare myself physically as well as I should have. Played the first game, got absolutely smashed. And I came back home and I was like, nope.
That was it. Not for me.
No, I mean, it was great. Paris was lovely.
Yeah.
First time traveling overseas. But I was like, no, this game is tough. It's not for me. And then a couple of months went by. I didn't play sevens. Then the coach phones me again. And he's like, listen, Tux is going to play in the Dubai sevens in December. Would you like to reconsider trying this? And I was like, well, I've never been to Dubai.
Yeah.
Let's go. Let's see. I did, obviously, leading up to that, I did have a bit more time to prepare a little bit better.
Yeah.
So yeah, I went in a little bit stronger, a little bit fitter, more mentally prepared to what it actually means to be tackled and to tackle. And yeah, the rest is history.
So what you're saying is we've got the international calendar of sevens rugby to thank for the fact that you're still playing. Yeah.
No, definitely.
And then the transition to 15s. I mean, if anybody's played rugby, I mean, 15s, we used to do it at school, you played 15s and all of a sudden you'd have sevens on the Saturday and you'd think you'd kind of be fine. And it's like two different sports, really. How difficult was it for you to adapt to the 15s game? And what were sort of some of the small things that you sort of noticed going into 15s compared to sevens?
Look, definitely, there's a massive difference. Anyone who tells me that rugby is rugby obviously hasn't played two separate codes at such a high level. But going into the 15s, honestly, I just winged it. I didn't know what I was doing. Especially coming in at fly half.
Now I know exactly. Not like you can really go hard in the wing there and just say, "I'll be here if you guys need me." No, front and center.
Touch the ball, play a little bit. I have to know what's going on, and the whole concept was a lot for me to take in the beginning. Like I said, I was really just winging it for like the first year, even the first World Cup that I played. I didn't really know what I was doing, to be honest with you. And just sort of figured it out, I really winged my whole way through that World Cup.
As one does, just on, in the World Cup, the biggest rugby tournament in the world. You just sort of, there in the number 10 jersey, I don't really know what I'm doing here, but I'm in New Zealand, it's fun.
As one should playing at that level, unfortunately. But I must say, now that I've spent more time there, gotten a bit more experience, I do think that I still have a lot to learn as a fly-off. Still, I mean, I haven't been playing for so long. But it was definitely a massive adaptation that I had to go through, coming from sevens into the 15, and also understanding the whole dynamic of what a fly-off actually does. Like, all you see on TV is, okay, it's the guy who's passing the ball, the guy who kicks. So I thought the fly-off does. No, so much more. There's so much work that goes into it behind the scenes, the calls, the planning, what is the game structure going to look like, all of that stuff that I didn't know and had to learn really quickly. I mean, I was pushed into the deep end so quickly, so I had to adapt and improvise sort of and wing it really well. But yeah, like I say, now I think I'm at a point where I'm starting to understand the game a little bit more, and working with a coach like Louis Kuhn, for example, has taught me so much.
That does help, but he also played the same position.
Yeah, he himself knows exactly what it's like to play fly-off, so I've learned a lot from him since he's coached us. And I'm just excited for the future. I think I still have a lot to grow as a fly-off. And I can't wait to be back on the field with the team, to be honest.
Well, still already set a few records, so hopefully plenty more to go. You're involved with the Bulls Daisies, which is the first professional team in the country. I mean, that's a pretty landmark moment. Can you maybe just chat to us about some of the challenges for women's rugby players and how significant, because I don't think anybody really realizes how significant it is to be a contracted full-time professional rugby player in the women's game at the moment.
No, absolutely. I mean, the Daisies have made massive strides. You could see it in last year's performance, the difference between us being full-time athletes. We're spending every day on the field, in the gym, together as a team. Girls are getting more hand-to-ball contact, and you could see it in our performances. I mean, I know it's fair for people to say, you don't want to go to a rugby game and see a team get beat 100. No one wants to see that. It's not really nice rugby to watch. But unfortunately, that just shows you the massive difference in a union that's professional and a union that isn't. Unfortunately, there aren't other unions that have gone professional this year, which I think is a little bit of a setback for South African women rugby as a whole. But hopefully in the future, going into next year, some of the other unions will come on board, and hopefully there'll be a URC for the ladies as well, because I think that will be a massive, massive thing for us to get the opportunity to play against some of the international clubs.
Yeah, I think it's a big thing. I think a lot of the unions need to start taking more responsibility about it. I think the Bulls have been really good at taking the lead there. So hopefully, especially our URC unions will sort of follow suit quite quickly. Now, I remember last year, I think it was last year, when SA Rugby appointed the director of the women's program. And Rassie Erasmus sort of spoke about the fact that they had treated the women's game the same as the men's and kind of thought, well, we do the same thing, it's going to work. And then took a while to realize how different the environment and how it's completely almost sort of polar opposites. So can you maybe give us insight, sort of what makes so different, and has there been, what's changed in the last sort of couple of years that has led to what was a very successful World Cup campaign?
And look, there is definitely a lot of differences between the men and the women's game. I think firstly, working with women is different to working with men, especially when you're working with a lot of women. When you have 30 plus women in the same environment, training together, obviously, we do tend to be a little bit more emotional at times. So coaches need to know how to work with women, how to speak to women. You can't necessarily speak to a woman the same way as you would speak to men. Also, the fact that our women aren't used to professional rugby in any setting prior to where we are now. So where a young boy might have been playing provincial rugby at under 16, under 18, moving up to the ranks, they sort of grasp the idea of what it's like to be in a professional environment, what you can expect from coaches, how they speak, how they manage, and such things. Where for the women, a lot of the time, it's their first experience playing professional rugby when they come into the Springbok setup. So they don't know that sometimes a coach is going to speak a certain way. And I think in today's times, people can be very easily offended as well. Where unfortunately, working in a professional sporting environment, you have to be able to understand that it's not always about your feelings. So that's something in the women's game where I think coaches and managements have had to adapt, and they've done it really well, especially if you look at the last year that we've had at the 7s and at the 15s. We've seen such massive strides, and I think it's just because of the people that are working with the ladies, because at the end of the day, we're still the same players, we're still the same core group that stayed together, but the performance has increased so significantly over the last year and a half. It has to come from somewhere, and I think it is filtering through from the top down into the players, through the management. So it's great to see that happening, and hopefully we can continue on this trend going into the future.
I think it's a very interesting point, the fact that, as you mentioned, by the time you've got in the men's game, even by the time you get to, Varsity Cup or, and Young Guns, these guys have been playing at a good level, solid level, have had all of the coaches for, 13, 14 years. Do you notice that sort of sometimes there's almost a bit of a skills shortage when you have, for example, that Springbok camp and you've got new faces in the camp and it's their first time? And is there quite a bit of a notable difference of sometimes that skill level or sort of deficiencies in some of the people's game, which obviously they have to catch up quite quickly? And is it one of those things where, coaches might identify a player who might be maybe less skilled but has more sort of potential and talent to be able to catch on quite quickly? Because it's quite a different concept as opposed to the men's game, where they're far more sort of the finished products when it gets to that level.
No, definitely. I think you can see a significant difference amongst, for example, ladies that come from the Daisies and ladies that come from other units. You can see it when we walk into a camp just with basic skills. The difference between these players is something you have to be there to see it. Like you can't miss it. You will know, okay, this player is coming from the Daisies, this player is coming from a different union. So it's definitely something that's very noticeable. I do think that our coaches are equipped enough to sort of be able to identify players who look like they have potential, because a big thing with a women's game is you also have to be willing to learn. And luckily for them, the ladies in general are like sponges, because we don't really know rugby. We haven't been playing rugby since 5, so we don't actually know that much. So whatever they say to us, we like take in like sponges. And I think the ladies are really more receptive when it comes to coaching than maybe what the men are. But I also think that our coaches do take chances on players that just look like they have a bit of potential, because we have had a couple of ladies where a coach is like, you know what, let's give this girl a chance. She hasn't played rugby, but she looks like she has something. And a lot of it has paid off.
That's a very interesting concept and idea, actually. Yeah, it must be such a strange sort of environment to be able to go into a national camp. You think this is the sort of top level and already be able to see that there's a big difference. A couple of our women's players are going overseas, which is I think really cool to see. You've got a couple of players over in the Premiership and stuff like that. Has that added to it when it comes to sort of the camp and you sort of listen to what their experience is? Is it something that you might look at in the future, for example, you just to sort of experience a different environment? What's that been like?
No, definitely. I mean, it's great to hear all the stories and the experiences that they get there. I also did get an opportunity to go play at the Wasps before they went into administration. But in hindsight, looking back, just following that, the days went pro. I've been on such a good wicket here in South Africa. I'm not sure if I will look to go overseas at the moment. Obviously, you never know what happens in the future. Anything could come along, anything could happen. But at the moment, I'm a very loyal person. I'm loyal to the Daisies. I'm loyal to Sax Rugby. I'm loyal to the Springbok badge. So for me, staying at home, I don't have a problem with that. Close to my family, close to my friends. That's something, my support system is very important for me. Yes. And I know that it's something that our ladies do struggle with going over there, especially because we used to come from a warm climate. Going to England, it's miserable, it's raining the whole time. And then you're a professional athlete. I think the experience rugby-wise, what they're getting is great. I mean, if you look at the results that our ladies have been having, I mean, Babalwa Lasha has been in the dream team a couple of weeks now in the Premiership, which is freaking amazing. But I mean, she is just an amazing player. I mean, show me a women's prop that plays 80 minutes. Like it's so impressive, really. Take my hat off for her. So for them, I think it's a great experience. For myself, I don't know. We'll have to see if the offer's right. You never know. Maybe I'll go over for a season or so. But at the moment, I'm very, very, very calm and collected here where I am at the moment.
Cool. Now, so we spoke about some of the challenges, and this entire video is being made possible because of our whole Varsity Cup campaign with MPL, and you are associated with Hydrate, I believe it is, who's there as fourth drink. Just maybe a little word in sort of the role they play, and how important it is to have that sort of support in making your life as a day-to-day professional athlete that little bit simpler.
No, definitely. I mean, firstly, Hydrate's flavors are absolutely amazing. So Tumanachi is my number one go-to flavor. They've got such great vitamins and stuff, and it's made with like coconut water, and it's so healthy. Like I actually didn't really know much about it until I sort of got involved with them, read the labels, they gave me the information. So it's really great just to have this supporting, and I think it's fantastic for them to get involved during like the Varsity Cup campaign with up and coming rugby players as well. It's really exciting for a young player to get that backing from them. And like I said, it's exciting to see them even now getting in by the Lions Union and sort of growing the brand slowly. I think what they're doing for young rugby players is absolutely amazing. And like I say, it just gives them that sort of feeling, a little bit of a taste of professional rugby and what it's like to be a sponsored athlete. So yeah, the backing that they've been giving me, I mean, there's nothing that makes life more simpler than waking up in the morning, grabbing my Hydrate, knowing after gym, great, I've got an ice cold Hydrate to drink. And that's my recovery drink.
Yeah, no, I can imagine. And I mean, as I said, last year, I think we had Varsity Cup, we had a women's match Varsity Cup and stuff like that. So hopefully we'll see a lot more collaboration between the brands in the future as the women's game continues to grow. I want to talk about 7s and 15s because, in the men's game, we've seen players, switch in between. Often in Olympics, you all of a sudden we suddenly see 15s players suddenly make the switch. Brian Abana decide to just, add an extra thing to his blend, for example. But SA Rugby made quite a conscious decision to sit there and say, well, we've got limited resources right at the top, but we also don't have quite the same calendar, so we can split resources. And yourself, for example, somebody who's playing both, and Nadine Rush had scored a fantastic try over the weekend. She's been involved in both. How does that work, in terms of, are SA Rugby coming to you and saying, right, this is how we think, the calendar going? Or do you have the power to be able to say, I want to focus, like you said, to this year's Paris, I want to focus on the Olympics type thing? How do you sort of work to get it right as opposed to where your commitments are?
So with the women at the moment, unfortunately, we have a very limited amount of players because our development structures aren't so great in place as with the men's. Our pool of selection is very small. But going into the circuit, into this Olympic year, players did have to choose either 7s or 15s. Okay. Unfortunately, injuries do happen. And, the knock came on my door and said, listen, we need you at the 7s. Do you want to do this? Do you not want to do this? And of course, I mean, since the moment that they qualified for the circuit, which I was part of that team, following the qualification for Olympics, I was really like, okay, no, I think just for this time a while, I think I'm going to invest a little bit more in the sevens.
Yeah, Paris is great in August, you know.
And spoke to Coach Louis Kuhn about it, being completely transparent with him. And obviously, like you say, everyone is aware of the opportunity and what it means to go to the Olympics. So that's just, it was an easy decision for me to sort of move over to the sevens just for this time being. But I think in the future, it will be difficult for our ladies to sort of juggle both 15s and sevens, just because we're playing in the circuits, and that's quite a full-time program for our sevens. So we'll have to see in the future. I doubt that there'll be many sort of crossover athletes from the ladies, but I'll always be willing and able, if I'm able, to play any rugby whenever they ask me to.
So if you could only play one format for the rest of your career, is it 15s or sevens?
That's a tough question. I think for the rest of my career, moving on from now, it'll probably be 15s, just because I've already spent close to 9-10 years of my life playing majority sevens. And I've sort of started quite enjoying the 15s. So I think going forward, I want a little bit more game time on the 15s field. Not saying I won't still be, like I say, willing to play sevens if they should come knocking. But yeah, I think that's where my head's at the moment.
And then speak to me about the World Cup. I mean, as you said, you were sort of a bit learning on the job and stuff like that. But I mean, and we all know, South African World Cups, the Springboks were their fourth, for example. But I think that was a tournament where I think the entire country actually sat up and went, first of all, we've got a women's side, and they're actually pretty good. And I think we're sort of overdue that they started sort of getting the recognition, because they've been slowly sort of growing, but they kind of needed that breakthrough moment. I felt that World Cup was very much that breakthrough moment. Do you have sort of any? Why do you think it's? Well, what was sort of the journey sort of getting to that stage, and what's it been like since? Has it been a bit of a watershed moment where people are sort of taking notes? Now you're getting hopefully more opportunities and more exposure.
No, absolutely. I think our biggest regret as a group is not doing better in that World Cup, because we got such great exposure from it. But unfortunately, that's the nature of the game. Like you say, following that, we've had the WXV where we did really well in. And now next year is another World Cup cycle. So the future is looking so bright. And I think leading up to this next World Cup, we've definitely seen an increase in investment, increase in support from our home crowds, increase in ladies playing rugby, Women's Varsity Cup, for example. So there's definitely been sort of a shift since that World Cup. I think going into the next World Cup, the whole group's really excited. We've been together now majority of us since the last World Cup. So I think as a group, we've just grown stronger. And under the guidance of Coach Libbie Janse, I think we really are capable of some great things in this next one.
Right, so then sort of your personal ambition stuff like moving forward. I mean, you've currently got the record for the most test points scored in a game. The first woman to break 100 test points. Any other sort of landmarks or sort of records that you've got your eye on, or just looking to make sure sort of extend that record so that it's going to take a while for somebody to come after it?
Look, I didn't start playing rugby, and I don't score tries and things for the records. I didn't really. I mean, you don't think about these things. It's just really cool just to know. I won't say I have my eye on like a specific record. I'm just going to keep doing my thing. Who knows when I retire what records there'll be. But yeah, for me at the moment, record-wise, nothing much. Just eyeing the Olympics, eyeing the WXV. I think we're going to do really, really well this year. So anyone who's in Cape Town, get down there. It's going to be a great one. And then following that will be the World Cup, which is going to be, I think, a great experience for our group.
Yeah, I hopefully that one step further in the World Cup, which I think we all know that you guys are capable of. So just hopefully we'll take it. But Libbie, well, from us, all the best for it. Really looking forward to seeing you back on the field and seeing you in Paris and in the World Cup next year, stuff like that. So thank you again for the time and all the best with the recovery. And hopefully next time we see each other, you'll be speaking about the various experiences and the next big step.
Thanks so much, Steve. Thanks for the chats.
Cool. First of all, big thank you to NPL for making this all possible. So they are powering our Varsity Cup coverage. We're going to be doing play interviews throughout the rest of the season, stuff like that. So lots of very cool stories being told. If you'd like to check more of that, then make sure you subscribe to the channel as well as like the video. And yeah, my name is Steve, and we will see you guys all very, very soon.